everyone. Excited to be here after all these great speakers. So I don't know if I'm going to live up to the last two presentations, but I'm definitely going to try something a little bit different. Do I just click? Click. Okay. So my topic is very different from the last couple. I'm here to talk about financial inclusion. I've spent the last 15 years or so working in and out of this field. And probably the first thing that comes to mind is, oh wow, that sounds so boring. You know, what even is financial inclusion? And it's really just a fancy way to say, how do we make sure that everyone has the tools, has the means to step up and participate in our modern life using, you know, I think what we would think of as modern financial tools like bank accounts, having savings that are not under your mattress, things like that. Let's imagine that you got invited to a party. The invite comes. You are so excited. You know this is the party of the season. And it's going to open up opportunities. You know, you might get a great job interview out of this, or, you know, maybe your crush is there, or your favorite musician. The point is, you know, you are so excited. This could be life-changing. And you open it and your heart sinks. Because it's far. It's got a fancy dress code, and you got to bring something really cool. You know, like a hot dog, or I don't know, some tahupong isn't gonna cut it. I think for everyone here, that's just not an issue, right? You can borrow something, buy something, rent clothes, you know, order, I don't know, cake, a roast chicken, whatever. But for a lot of people, something like that could be completely out of their means. They may not have a car to get to this place. They might have to buy clothes, or they may not even know what to wear, right? Some people just have not had these opportunities. And so what happens is that you have a situation where people can't come. And that's why the title of my talk is, what if you couldn't come to the party, right? We've all been there, but not because we couldn't afford to go, not because we didn't have the means to go. We are the lucky ones in this room. And this is something that a lot of people in the world have experienced. This is someone I met in Sumba. And, you know, she's a woman living actually on this incredibly beautiful stretch of sand. You know, I look at it and I'm like, wow, this is an island paradise. But for her, it also means that she has very few opportunities there. She's a high school graduate. Her family's not wealthy. There weren't a lot of jobs there. So what is she doing? She's got that thing on her head, right? She's going at night when the moon is out and the tide is out, and she's going around and going to the beach and finding seafood like lobsters and shrimp and so on. And I'm like, wow, you know, I mean, it sounds cool, but it's also kind of, you know, she's alone on a dark beach doing this. And what does she want? She knows there's a market for this. She could sell it. There's only one catch. By morning, whatever she caught isn't going to be that fresh. So what did she want? She wanted a fridge, like a little chiller, you know, or maybe even something she could pack with ice. But she couldn't get the money. And she's looking for maybe $2 million, $3 million, you know, a couple $100 max. And she couldn't get her hands on it. Well, this story has a happy ending. She was able to get that loan from a local organization. And she was able to get her fridge. And she was able to start selling as a result. And this house is the house that she built with the proceeds from that. She was incredibly proud. She was like, look, it's concrete. I have a house. That is one of the happy stories. Worldwide, we've got 1.7 billion, give or take. A good fourth of the world's population who doesn't have a bank account. That means when you're traveling, 1 in 4 people, if you're out of urban centers, they could very well be one of these people who just don't have access to modern financial systems. Imagine if you didn't have Netflix, you don't have Spotify, you can't buy stuff on TikTok, it's just going to be a whole nother existence, right? And these people, they're not looking for TikTok or Netflix. They just want to participate. They want to maybe have savings. They want to get access to bank accounts, loans, credit cards. There's no way you're going to get a credit card usually if you don't have, if you can't qualify for a bank loan. So this is a real problem. And in Indonesia, we have the world's 4th largest unbanked population, of whom more than 50% is women. And why is that? We've actually been making huge strides. Partly because on top of bank services, we now have a lot of e-wallets, right? E-money. But we're still a chain of 17,000 islands. There are places where you have to travel for hours to access a bank account, a bank branch, right? Where you could open an account and do transactions. And if you're someone who's caring for children or elderly, that gets really hard. And that even assumes you have, maybe a motorcycle. In Sumba, if you don't have a motorcycle, you gotta hitch a ride or maybe ask your neighbor if you can borrow his or her horse. Then you get to the bank, and it's this fancy place, it may be air conditioned. It's kind of nerve-wracking to go in, they look at you and they're like, oh, what are you doing here? Can you, you don't feel welcome. And then that even assumes that you have all the documents that they're gonna ask for. In Jakarta, in urban centers, that's not a problem. But if you were born in a rural village, you might not have a birth certificate. You might not have all the things you need to open a bank account. And lastly, you might think, well, it seems so scary and so difficult. Maybe I'll just skip the whole thing and keep my money under my mattress. And then you're back to where you were. This over here is a picture of a woman who, she was very hardworking. These are hand-woven textiles that she made herself. Each of them took months. And she sells them to tourists, this is also in Sumba, to fund her kids' school. Well, she had all of those things. She definitely did not have a bank account, didn't have the self-confidence to approach the local bank. But what she was able to do with a little bit of help was to get an online account, right? An e-money account, and start selling. And then she was able to get on TikTok and take orders. And through that simple encouragement by others, she was able to start being part of, today's modern economy. Now, I don't think she has Netflix yet, right? Like, that's not where we're going. But, she's now able to do a lot of the things that we can do here. And that means her kids are going to be able to do that. And she's going to be able to put away money for savings and think about what other things she wants to do with her life. So this leads me to the question. These all seem, I think, they're often very abstract issues, right? Part of the reason this is a topic that I wanted to bring up is because I think we often don't think about the ways we design spaces or systems. And the question is, what can we do to make sure that more people can come to the table? That could be as simple as helping an elderly relative to, figure out how to manage their digital bank account. Or it could be encouraging someone who's scared to go to the bank by, helping make sure they've got their documents. We know there are a lot of household staff, a lot of maybe drivers and so on, who need that encouragement. They're actually interested, but they're a little bit scared. Or it could be as simple as you're holding a youth event and you make sure there's some allocation or there's some transfer for those who would like to come that can't afford to. There are all these ways that we can think about creating space. And, here's another question. So what? We're all comfortable. Why should we even bother to create access and spaces for each other? What's in it for us to help all these people? And I would argue at that point that, sure, we're not really, helping people, I think is a very almost condescending way, right? But when you have a healthy, thriving society where, people aren't poor, they have enough, they have the means to go create the lives that they want. It means you can walk through your neighborhood, you can walk through your city, the village, and you feel good. People are thriving. It's a healthy, safe environment for you. it's fun, maybe they're making, I don't know, little cafes or activities that you get to join in as well. It's good for them and it's good for us. And this is the kind of happiness, this is, I think, the kind of thing that we want to see, happy, thriving communities for us as well, for the people around us and for we ourselves, because we really need to come together and create these spaces. So with that, I invite you all to think about in your daily lives how we might create more space at the table, and let's get the party started. Thank you.